Okay.
Excellent.
So now that we got all the technicalities with the technology out of the way, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell people where you're at, what you're all about, all that good stuff.
Sure. So my name is Babette Haggerty. I'm a dog trainer. Been training dogs on my own since '89, and I say on my own because before that, I was raised in a kennel. I was raised in a dog training kennel.
Like in the kennel? No.
Practically in the kennel, yeah. Like I was feeding the dogs, in the metal dishes and socializing the puppies. And I remember trying dog food when I was probably like 3 when I ate dog food, helping my mom feed the dogs. So, and like Bob Maida would tell you stories about me like crying in the baby carriage at the kennel. And, I would be in the kennel office crying, and, my dad would be on the phone and be like, put a collar on her. So anyway, yeah. So, I mean, I grew up in that training kennel, and truthfully, it's kind of funny now because, my whole life, my dad being the guy he was, people don't understand in those times in the 60s and the 70s, nobody was a dog trainer. Like I remember going to summer camp as a kid, and you'd be like, oh, what does your dad do? Oh, my daddy's a dentist. What does your dad do? He's a dog trainer. And they just kind of look at you like, okay. Like I remember I went out on like a date when I was at boarding school, and this was like the 80s. And this guy's like, so what does your dad do? And this guy was like at West Point. I was like, oh, he's a dog trainer. And the guy looked at me like, okay, but like, what does your dad do? Like, I'm like, duh, he's Captain Haggerty. He's the dog trainer. And, and just even like we'd be out in the city in New York City because we lived in the suburbs, and people would like wave to him because he was so well known because nobody else was a dog trainer. And, he was a big bald guy, and he was a character into himself. So, And then, as time went on, and then when I started on my own, I think there were 4 dog trainers in Palm Beach County. And now if you go to Google, like you can't even count how many, like there's probably 200 dog trainers in Palm Beach County. Now, granted, Palm Beach County has grown in the last almost 40 years, but there's a dog trainer everywhere. Like everybody's a dog trainer. And now when you tell somebody you're a dog trainer, it's like, oh, okay. They don't think much of it at all. It's just weird. But, when he passed away, people said, and he put dog training on the map.
So. Well, he wrote the Encyclopedia Britannica section of dog training.
Yes, he did.
And the people that don't know who we're referring to, this is Captain Haggerty that we're talking about. And if you don't know, we have a lot of new trainers that join us, or people that are kind of delving into the industry. You got to know Captain Haggerty, you guys. And I remember when he was inducted in the IACP Hall of Fame, I was there. So let's talk about your dad for a second. Okay. So he started out as an actor. That's initially where do you remember him acting at all, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, actually, he was training dogs long before the acting. And then
he was.
Because, his business was based in New York City. I mean, he had several locations. The kennel was upstate New York. The main office was in Manhattan. He had an office in the Bronx, too, and in Brooklyn. And we lived in Jersey. And, kind of between the city and where the kennel was. And we'd go up to the kennel on the weekends. Anyway, so he was supplying a lot of dogs for TV, movies, commercials, ads, etc. And, his school really, we had guard dog rentals. We did boarding and training. We did boarding. We did grooming. We did private lessons in the home. We did group classes. We did theatrical dogs. He imported German Shepherds from Germany to police departments all over the country, to people really all over the world. Come to think of it. And then he got a call one day to supply dogs in the movie Seamus with Burt Reynolds. And this had to be, I'm going to say 72. I'd have to ask Bob Maida. Maybe he's watching. I don't think he is. But so what happened was they had Bob Maida's Great Dane, Jai, in that movie, and some German Shepherds. And what had happened was they when you're dealing with dogs on a movie set, there's a lot of behind the scenes with the handlers commanding the dogs. But also what had happened was they liked the look of my dad and they kind of wrote him into the script, and he became like the dumb bad guy that was just, running through Central Park. And anyway, there's this scene, and I have a photograph of it. It's a fairly well-known photograph. And it's the scene where, they've got the dogs out and everything, but they're in Central Park and there's this little bungalow, and Burt Reynolds, who's actually a crooked cop in the movie, he was hiding, in the bungalow, and my dad's going to get him because he's like the big dummy, and the boss guy's like, go get him over there. My dad's like, oh, okay. So Burt Reynolds hit him with a log in the stomach, and there's a picture of my dad trying to get into the bungalow to get to Burt Reynolds, and Burt Reynolds beating the bejesus out of my dad. And so I saw that movie when it came out, and granted, I don't know if it was PGA or not, but I was probably, I'm going to say I might have been like 6 when that movie came out. And I don't remember this, but my dad and mom always told me that I cried. And my dad always told the story of, I turned to my dad and I said, you're not allowed to play with him anymore. He's not a nice person. And of course, Burt Reynolds, he was gorgeous, but as I got older. And then that gave my dad the acting bug. So he started doing some acting, and it was fun. And I actually started doing some acting. Oh, you found the picture. There it is.
Yes, I did.
And it's a great shot.
Burt Reynolds is smacking Captain Haggerty on the head as he's coming into the room. So,
as a matter of fact, that picture, I went last year to Palm Beach State College. It's the local community college, and I was taking some classes there. And Burt Reynolds grew up in Jupiter, which is actually where my children spent their early years, which is northern Palm Beach County, Florida, for people who don't know. So Burt was a big fixture growing up in Jupiter, and the northern Palm Beach County campus of Palm Beach State has Burt Reynolds Hall or building or something like that. And they have pictures of Burt Reynolds, including that picture. And I walked in, and I had been to Palm Beach State College like 40 years ago when I was going to college, and I went back, and I hadn't been there in a long time. And I walked in, and I was like, oh my God, there's my dad. It was pretty cool. I was like, I love that picture.
Yeah. What a cool experience too. And Burt Reynolds, we had a huge poster of Burt Reynolds in my grandma's, like the family room there. She loved Burt Reynolds, so.
Every woman loved Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he had the look. Your dad had the look, and then he starred in that show. And then, he's got his own IMDb page.
Yeah, he does. He had like, unfortunately he had like a lot of small parts in big movies, but, and actually I found it just not too long ago when I posted on Facebook, he actually is in Annie Hall, and he was giving Woody Allen woman advice, on the street in Manhattan, of course. But unfortunately, that scene got cut out. But he was also in Married to the Mob. And I'll never forget, my mother-in-law said to me back when the movie came out, the next morning, she had gone to the movie, and the next morning she says to me, you told me your dad was in that movie. Your dad's not in that movie. I said, yeah, he is. He's in the very first scene. She said, oh, we walked in a few minutes late. I said, oh, he was dead by then, because Alec Baldwin kills him, and it's like the second scene of the movie. And then he was also in, oh my God, not Leaving Las Vegas, Honeymoon in Vegas with Nicolas Cage and Sarah Jessica Parker. And he had a very small part in that movie. Nicolas Cage was a private detective, and he was following my dad, who was a cheating businessman. So my dad got to like kiss this hot chick for 10 seconds, got paid some money for it. And, and then he was like in a lot of like off-Broadway plays and things like that. And those were always fun. And because I enjoyed going with him, and he'd practice his lines on me. And, but he had said to me, because there was a time where I wanted to be an actress, and he said, you need to have a steady income. You need to have a career, a job, because you cannot depend on acting. And I remember my dad would go to auditions all the time, and he had that freedom because he owned his own business. But, it never would have paid the bills.
And you're unique because now you're doing, I mean, I know that there's a lot of dog professionals out there with kids that's the last thing that they want to do.
Right.
And so how did you, I mean, I still want to stick on your dad a little bit because I want to talk about his seminars and his contribution and what you've learned from him. Maybe this will dovetail into that. It's like, how did you know that this is kind of the torch you wanted to carry forward?
I had no idea. When, I grew up working for my dad he brought me to work with him when I was as young as like 6 years old. He paid me $2 an hour from the time he woke me up in the morning to the time we'd come home at night. And I'd answer the phones, I'd walk dogs, I'd feed dogs. And, my mom being like from her generation, she was a secretary. She taught me how to take messages. So it was actually for a kid, like I knew my dad used to like tell people like my kid's taking better phone messages than you are. She's writing the phone number. She's dictating the phone number back. She'd write the time and date, and it was really a family run business, even though he had a lot of employees. And I was going a completely different direction, but during the summer I would work for him, and on the weekends I would work for him. And whenever he needed an extra set of hands, like doing a movie or a soap opera or something, he'd say, "You're coming to work with me tomorrow." I'd say, "Okay," because he needed the cheap labor, and I was okay with it. And he paid, he paid me pretty well. So I worked for him just because it was a good gig, and I was off going to college, doing my thing. And then I was down here going to college on a completely different trajectory. And my mom and I went to a dog show, and I called up my dad and I said, "I'm going to start breeding dogs. I miss being around the dogs. I want to start breeding dogs." And he said, "There's no money in that. Become a dog trainer." And I'm like, "Dog trainer? Like, you're the dog trainer." Like, there was no other dog trainer out there anyway. I mean, there was a couple of handfuls. You had the Monks. You had Kohler, like there weren't other dog trainers out there. There were the people who worked for my dad that were dog trainers. So I thought that was the silliest thing I ever heard. But of course, I was a dumb college kid. What did I know? And he booked a flight, and he was at my place in a few weeks and set me up, bought me my first set of business cards. And because I knew how to train dogs, and I had been around it for so many years that I had absorbed so much more than I ever realized. And like today I was actually talking to somebody about my first bad bite. And I remember that bite when that dog came after me. What saved me was watching my dad agitate dogs for years. And because my instinct was when the dog was coming after me, coming towards me, I just by instinct gave him my arm, and he went down my arm, and then he came off, and then he came charging at me again, and I gave him my other arm. I had never personally agitated a dog, but just seeing that over and over and over in my head for so many years, it was an instinct. So there was a lot that I just absorbed by osmosis. And then next thing I knew, I was training dogs more than going to class, and I really liked making money more than going to school. So,
what did you go to school initially for?
The first time, fashion merchandising.
Okay.
And then I changed my major. I don't even know how many times.
Yeah,
my parents can probably count. If they were still here to tell about it. I was on the long stretch of college, much to their chagrin. I ended up finishing much later, actually right after my dad passed away. I had gone back to school because at a certain point I was only like 8 credits short or something, and I went back and I finished up just because I wanted the bachelor's, just because I started it. I wanted to finish it. And at that point my kids were born and everything, and I was making money training dogs. I didn't really need the degree, but
you wanted some closure with it, right? It's like open end.
Exactly.
And I went to college. I went for finances, I graduated liberal arts, but I studied ancient civilizations. I just started getting into that, and I was really, really good at just kind of documenting. It was just fascinating to me. And like I said earlier, like I had a background of studying when I was a young kid, I wanted to be a priest. And so I looked back at like studying the Bible and and Old Testament, all that stuff. Just kind of, I don't know, it just lit a passion within me.
Right.
And then I came up here and in tables, and next thing I know is like I kind of just look back at my life, and when I was 8 years old and I got a dog. I'm the only boy out of a family of all girls, and so I had a companion, and they made me take it to a training class, and I fell in love with it, and I was pretty good at it. She had me come in as the assistant of the class with my golden retriever, and I just remember that time in my life, and I was like, you know what, that's what I want to do. And then I started Bow Wow Bills and started initially walking dogs and just trying to figure out how can I make as much money as I do now, and what is a good day of me waiting tables, and then kind of like, okay, $100, so I can walk 5 dogs for $20, and just kind of went forward with there. And then I started getting into training, and here I am. I bought my own little ranch, and
awesome.
Yeah, and so it's something that I think, especially the people that are new, you know, it is achievable, but you also have to kind of, figure out what you want to do, right? And figure out how to train a dang dog. Somebody wants to know, what style of training did your dad use? If there's a style, I don't know.
Well, I mean, you know, he was never one for labels. I mean, he wrote a book called Zen and the Art of Dog Training. And he would always say, you know, I practice training as an art, not a science. So, you know, you give him 10 different dogs and he's going to train them 15 different ways. So what style? I mean, you know, it was his style. You know, he trained the dog that was in front of him. It was not like some systems are, day 1, you're doing this, 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 and this. Day 2, this, this, and this. He wrote an article for the AKC Gazette many years ago. You could probably get it from their library. It was called "What is a Training Method?" And he talks just about that, the styles of training, the training methods, and really the difference between training as an art versus training as a science.
I agree. That's such a profound thing, you know, is how to I'm looking at these books by him too. How to Teach Your Dog. And that's something I've always said, is it is an art and a science, right? Mm-hmm. And it takes an eclectic knowledge base. You can learn from everybody. And once you think that you have it all figured out, you're dead in the water. Like, dogs are teaching us, even after training dogs for 20 plus years, I still get dogs and I'm just like,
yeah.
Right. How would I approach that? And then, he says, thanks for the tips on problem with scrap that happened, you and Nate. Okay, Nate Schomer and I gave him some tips on how to keep his dogs getting along. I guess what style method, like, did he do balanced, positive?
Yeah, I mean, he did everything. Yeah, I mean, positive reinforcement. I mean, he correct dogs. You know, he told dogs no. You know, I mean, whatever he had to do to get the job done. And you have to remember too, Marina Zuno wrote an article, and I don't know if it ever got published, and she'd sent it over to a few people. You know, are the dogs that we're training today the same dogs that they once were? And I can tell you right now, the problems people call me with today are nothing like they were 30 and 40 years ago. And they're certainly not what they were when my dad, you know, first started out in the 60s. You know, I barely get phone calls for aggressive dogs anymore. It's so rare. I remember when I started out 30 years ago? Yeah, 35 years ago. Was that? I can't do my math. You know, people would call me with a 9-month-old, you know, boxer that dug through the wall. You know, a 10-month-old Doberman that was, you know, trying to bite people. I can't remember the last time I had a boxer that ate through a wall, or somebody called me with a chewed up couch. And I feel it's a lot of reasons, but people call me now. I have a guy that booked me yesterday. They're picking up the dog Monday. They haven't even gotten the dog and they've already signed up for the training. So like, and my dad used to say this, he'd say, I hate training young puppies because nobody realizes what a great job you do for them because you stop all these problems from developing.
Amen.
Whereas back then, nobody trained the puppies. They waited until the dog was really bad or the dog was about to get booted out the door before they did any training.
Yep.
So, you know, the problems that my dad had back then were in New York City, I'm about to get evicted. My dog won't stop barking in the house. Well, you could take the slow route, or you can and let this guy get evicted, or you can go in there and correct the dog and tell the dog no. Whether it's a spray bottle, voice correction, whatever it is.
Yep. Or come to Jesus, right?
Yeah, come to Jesus. It still works.
Sometimes I tell people like the behavior, and it's like putting out fires, right? And I have a puppy right here with me that somebody's paid me to take, and I'm taking her for 3 months, right? And I'm doing all the work that they needed to do. But this, I think, do you think that training has progressed in that way? That's what, or do you think that in some ways it's progressed, in other ways it's kind of deteriorated as well, like as far as standards are concerned, I guess? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have thought about that a lot. I think that, all right, I think it has progressed in the sense for dogs that I do feel people are putting more time, energy, and effort into their dogs, and people are more likely to go out and get their dogs trained.
People know.
Whereas before they used to not. Now, anytime you have an abundance of services, you're going to lower that quality. I mean, and I always use McDonald's as an analogy.
Okay.
You can go to McDonald's and get a hamburger. If you want a good hamburger, you're going to go to McDonald's. No, you're going to shop around. But because you have such an overabundance of businesses that offer training, the groomer down the street, the big warehouse stores, and I don't really want to pick on anybody, but every daycare offers training now. And, they give you a 3-ring binder, they give you a bag of treats, and boom, you're a dog trainer. All you have to do is get the dog to sit for the treat. So the expectations are lower. And whereas there was a time where people wouldn't hire a second dog trainer, now people tell me all the time, oh yeah, we took him to puppy class here, and then we did basics here, and now we have you, and it's 3 years later, and now this problem has come up. So people don't, it's not like one and done anymore the way it used to be. And I also feel like in some ways people have less of an appreciation for a dog trainer because there are so many of us now. And because people start working with their dogs earlier, and I'm actually just kind of thinking out loud here, people start working with their dogs so much earlier that they're not suffering with problems with the dog. So they just get any trainer in to quickly fix that problem. And then, in a year, if another problem comes up, they'll just bring somebody else in. So I don't know if what I just said made sense, but.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a saturated market, right? And they feel like they have a vast variety. And so it's not, it's also, I think, that's what I was saying about you said one and done, and I like that. I wrote that down here. It's like when you do properly train a dog, and that's what I like about, people call it old school methods. And you didn't have e-collars. We didn't have the technology where we can, talk to the dog. Like we didn't have these cell phones. We didn't have these live streams. We didn't have Zoom meetings like I do with my clients. And now people not only know, like Nelson said, people now know that they can get training. No one thought of it back then. And let me see here. We have, if you guys have any comments or questions, I'll get to them here in just a second. But it's also, there's so many more dogs.
Oh yeah.
Too, right?
Yep.
Like I was looking at the statistics in 96, 56 million dogs. Now we're approaching 100 million just in America.
Wow.
Right. And so with a population of 350 million people, and we have 100 million dogs, that's almost a third of every household has dogs. And in cities like Seattle, there's more dogs than there are children.
Wow.
And there's a couple things like they have this saturated because it's met the need of the increase in numbers, but there's also a disproportionate view, I think, of the relationship with the dog. And I talked to Linda Kame about this too, where And also a misappropriated parental type of aspect of the relationship too. I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking out loud too. Like, and it's sometimes good and sometimes not so good. Sometimes they think they're little people, and they don't know how to set firm boundaries. They don't know how to do effective punishment, where this stops the behavior. And just like you said, that's why I wrote down one and done, right? Yep. And that's a good punishment, is like one, and we're done, dude. I'm never doing this thing again. And I think that's you know, we've also kind of been washed through kind of I call it like the HR department of a Fortune 500 company. That's what the big box store training offer, that's what it reminds me of. Like, it's almost politically correct. Like, it doesn't want to go to I mean, not necessarily ugly, because it is necessary, but you know, it doesn't feel good when we have to punish a dog to be like, hey, don't do this again. And I think that people, by misappropriating that parental feeling, a good feeling, they think that every aspect of this relationship needs to be a good feeling and feel good. And I always remember what my dad says is, he said, son, doing what's right doesn't always feel good. Right. And so I think that may be a link missing, you know, and there are a lot of problems that I see now, but there's also a lot of attachment disorders and a lot of misconceptions of the actual relationship between a dog and a person. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I completely agree. You know, there was a time where, you know, it was funny. I used to say, when I first moved, you know, because I was in Florida for a long time, and then I moved back to New York for a while. And I used to think to myself, you know, there was a difference between the Florida dog owners and the New York dog owners, because the New York dog owners, like, oh no, like, you want to put a martingale collar on my dog? Are you kidding me? I'm like, really? The dog needs a choker chain, but like, I know you're not going to go for that, so let's go for the martingale. Whereas like my Florida dog owners would be like, you have one of those shock collars we could use? Like, and it was, you know, the difference between night and day. And I thought a lot of it was a geographical difference, but I see now too, it's people, they don't want to say no to their dogs. They're afraid to say no to their dogs. They're afraid that their dog is going to fall apart. And, you know, it's not fair to the dog, because it's stressful for the dog. And, you know, when you have, for example, I had a client that I'm helping. She's up in Albany, New York, and she's got this Cane Corso rescue, and it's a lot of dog, but she's trying to make it work. And she asked me about like elevators and stuff. And I said, listen, this is what I want you to do. And she said, I was afraid that was going to stress him out too much. I said, he needs to increase his tolerance for stress, because this dog is reacting the way we don't want him to when he is stressed. And I mean, there's a balance there. You can't go too far, but you have to slowly increase the tolerance for stress, increase that cortisol level. He's going to be a healthier dog too. He's going to be more relaxed. He'll be happier. He's not going to lunge and want to eat people. And, nobody wants to stress anybody out anymore. It's crazy. And it's doing dogs a disservice. It really is.
Yeah. I tell people, like, look, I call it toughness. Like, there's a toughening, like an incremental toughening. We don't want to just throw them into some place that's going to overwhelm them. But if we look at a 30,000 foot view of what this situation is, and we're bringing the dog into the human world, like, the dog shouldn't fall apart with a new person walking into the room. There's new people that are going to be walking in the room in your house. And I also have to remind people, like, this isn't the experience that you visualize when you've got this dog, correct? And they're like, yeah. I was like, well, explain to me the experience that you thought that you would have. And a lot of people just want to have a cool dog, a dog that they can take places, a dog that listens to them. And I say, well, I go places, and on my way over here, I stressed out on I-5 driving, right? And so stress, and if I fell apart, then I would never have made it here. Like the stress is a part of life. Like, there is an amount of discomfort that goes along with relationships, that goes along with learning, that goes along with coexisting, right? And to just not to try to avoid that at all costs is an absolute disservice. And what you're going to find out is that the more insistent you are, or the more, I guess, assertive you are, the more the dog respects you, the more the dog's just like, oh, you got this, right? And they're looking for that leadership role. They're looking, and it's like, just like when I say toughness, like I'm not talking about a boxer like Rocky in the 5th round, like just getting the tar beat out of him. I'm talking about being able to deal and get to the other side of small stressors that are going to happen in your life. We belong to a world that chaos and order is a natural rhythm of things. And just walking down the street, we might encounter a chaotic situation that's 100% out of our control. And that's where the training comes in. That's where the conversation that we've had it starts to be very meaningful in terms of how that dog responds. And we need to be able to trust our dog. And that's the other aspect of this too, is like, you want a cool dog that you can trust, that in situations that you encounter, that they're going to be cool. They're going to keep a level head. Or if they're uncertain, that they're going to default to you to make sure that you protect them. Right. But you don't need to protect them from somebody coming in, or you don't need them to think that or respond in a way that's so dysregulated that it's bringing about your quality of life and diminishing that. So
absolutely, yeah. I tell owners all the time, you have to be in charge. You have to do what's easiest for you. It's not about the dog. I mean, my dad used to jokingly say, who's paying the bills? Does he have a TV show? Is he bringing in 6 figures? You're driving him to the vet. You're where is he when the mortgage has to be paid? Where is he when the car payment has to be made? Yeah. He's not worried. He's sitting on the sofa waiting for you to serve him his next meal. Asking him to behave is not an unreasonable expectation,
Absolutely. Have good etiquette. It's just like our kids too. Like if I had a kid, I'd tell him to take out the trash, and yeah, he does it, but he flips me the bird the whole time. That's right. Unacceptable. Even though he's doing what I asked him, it's still, there's an etiquette to this. There's something that we expect. And a lot of times when people are reaching into their hard-earned wallet or hard-earned money in their wallet and pulling it out and giving it to me, like I've never taken payment from a dog. I've never, like, they're the ones that pay the bills. Right. And also in this industry, because it is so saturated, I ask people on these conversations, I've done a couple hundred of these conversations, and I say to people, or ask them the question, what do you say to people that have got into working with dogs because they don't like people? Right? It's like, look, you got to have a love for people in a way, because we're helping the people aspect to get resolution from this problem that they're experiencing with their dog. Absolutely. And so unless you want to just work in the kennels and handle dogs or whatever, then you're going to have some element of agreeableness and be able to make analogies and learn as much as you can to help as many people as you can.
Absolutely.
I see you commenting in the comments, man. You're on this. You're the first person.
Yeah, I saw Kevin there. He's one of my favorite. I love Kevin.
What's up, Kevin? Kevin's holding the sun on his finger right there in the ocean.
Yeah.
Let's go to the comments here, you guys. And let me know in the world. This goes all around the world. So even if you're watching this after the fact, comment down below where you're watching this from. I find it fascinating. Armin Hammer says, my dad sent me an old German couple with our family in the 80s. They didn't use food. Sometimes I don't use food.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a dog here. I'm not giving her one treat. Look at how they raised Dindus. The issues with dogs is a symptom of the society raising kids' dogs. What's Dindus?
I think it's the kids.
They're Dindus. Okay. I gotta look that up. The issue with dogs. Yep. And there's a lot of stuff that correlates. Boundaries.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like routine, follow through, all that stuff is very important to the dog and to the human, the kid aspect as well.
You know what I want to bring up too, because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, dog trainer friend Lorraine Smith, about this just the other day, whenever it was. she was talking about, a client and, they wanted the fast results. And I told her, I said, yeah, I said, it's the Amazon Prime effect. Nobody wants to do the work anymore. And, we can go on our app and I can order a new dog crate and I can pick like, oh, it'll be here tonight before 10 or tomorrow morning before 8. I hit click, done. There's my dog crate. I go to Starbucks and like, I admit I'm guilty of this. And then one day I realized like, oh, this is the Amazon Prime effect. I go, I order my coffee. I walk to the pickups 5 feet away and I'm like, where's my coffee? Because I'm used to pushing a button and it coming right out. So nobody wants to do the work with their dog anymore because they think like, oh, the trainer's coming. They're just going to sprinkle the fairy dust. And then that's that. And I don't have to work the dog. So
I mean, prime effect. I love that. It's
like, because, and I feel like Amazon has spoiled us in that way because we are just this add to cart, order now, and then we get it here the next day. I mean, I ordered 2 or 3 dog things the other day from not Amazon. And of course I'm thinking like, when is this going to get here? I mean, I know it's silly, but there's part of me that's like, oh God, I have to wait. It's not coming tomorrow.
Yep. Or you're checking it over and over again. I mean, we have, because I'm up here in Seattle, we'll have it this afternoon. I can order it and 3 hours later, it'll be at our door. Yeah. And it's also, it's not just with Prime, but with Google, like anything that any information, AI, Chat GPT, all the Grok, all this stuff is increasing the access to information. And not only that, but it is instantaneous where we push a button. I call it push button society.
Yes.
And I have to remind people that with behavior, that is not what we're dealing with here. And we need to have some patience. And sometimes this is actually a wonderful thing to get out of this like instant gratification mode. We do celebrate our victories, and there are some things that you will see, just like with the client that has the dog that's barking and needs to save his apartment. Like there are some more, I guess, intense, meaningful ways that we can speak to a dog, but those also have some fallout repercussions as well, right? And so to know, what we do, and also, what the fallout can be if we try to move too quickly. And I always tell people less is more, slow is fast, right? Mm-hmm. Especially in this push button world, right? We have to just take a deep breath, remember to celebrate our victories, but keep our eye on that big prize, which is bridging the gap of like where you're at now and where you want to be. And then when you're in the middle here, that's called the messy middle, right between there. And that's where I am, to help you get through that messy middle and encourage you, but also, just let you know, hey, look, this is perfectly normal. This is what might happen. And so when I say these things and they come to fruition, that I've said it. And so you're like, okay, cool. Like this is what the dog's going to do. And it's like, when we start to look at, like, if we go to fight or flight, which is on the extreme, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And then we start to get some like interest and agreeableness. And then we start to get to all the way to the other side of like, okay, cool. We're actually in a cohesive relationship of like the lines of communication are open. When I say this, I perfectly can see that dog acknowledges it and does it. And then now we're on that positive reinforcement end of like, good dog, there we go. Yeah. That makes sense.
Makes total sense.
I want to go back to the comments here. 2.5 years in. Okay, cool. So we got a new trainer in. People are impressed, but I still don't have enough confidence to charge money.
My dad would be all over you, Armand. You need to charge money because you are worth something. You're saving that dog's life. And you know what? If you don't charge them any money, that's what the advice is worth to them. Nothing. And they will not listen to you. And I have to tell you, I have had clients that, I try to do them a favor and, give them a break. And that's what it's worth to them. Nothing. you know, and then I get clients who pay me big bucks, and you know what? They listen to everything I tell them to do. Everything.
Yep, me too.
So you're saving lives, you need to charge money.
And I don't want to tell you how much I'm charging to train this dog right here. I mean, it is in the 5 figures, just to give you a hint, right? And it's like that's because I know that it's taking a lot of time out of my life, which the time, like the green stuff, the money, we can make that stuff and we can lose it and we can make some more. But the time that you dedicate to this, you can never get back, right? And so if you're committing a lot of time, haven't you heard of time is money, or pay attention, right? There's these certain things that we talk about. So if you're dedicating time and effort, put a price on that. And then there's also a price, like I would charge $40 an hour. Then I charge $65 an hour. And I'm like, screw this. Nobody's doing anything. I shot it up for $150 an hour and people were doing exactly what I said.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I'm just like, okay, that's my minimum, my bare minimum. If I'm talking to you on Zoom calls or whatever, is $150 an hour minimum. And depending on the case that we're dealing with, a lot of the aggression cases I'm not even taking because, one, I don't have to. Right. And two, I mean, it's just a lot of dog and I don't want to risk myself. I've been bit. I've had serious bites. I've had a bite where I was in the hospital. I had a bite where I had to be on antibiotics, intravenous antibiotics, and it screwed up my whole system. I got like rashes and fungal stuff, and because it kills all, not just in your body, but on your skin and stuff. And all of a sudden I'm like, what the hell's going on? And it was a learning time for me. Right. So this is, this is serious work. I mean, dogs' mouths are very dirty. And if those teeth get into your system, then we got a problem. Let me see. Attachment disorders. Yes. Having a baby because they want to feel loved or needed. Get a dog to do the same. Yeah. Yep. I'll call them emotional dumping grounds. Dogs, when they, especially in those situations. Yeah. And I call them looking at dogs too. Like you're not respecting the job that this dog was bred for, especially these powerful breeds, right? And it's like, look, you have a collie and you have a 1-bedroom apartment. And I ask them, how many llama do you have? And they're like, none. And I'm like, okay, then you have sheep. And they're like, no. I was like, but that's what this job, that's the dog that this job was intended for.
Right. Absolutely. Right?
And that's what their brain is it's baked into their brain. Mm-hmm. Right. And so now we need to find some type of activity that is going to nurture that intrinsic desire that's baked into the dog that you have. So let me see here. We have a few comments. I have 11 neighbor dogs living in a barking distance. Not one owner walks their dogs. Okay. Do you think that walking dogs is huge, Babette?
I think it's important. I mean, if you don't walk your dog, I hope you're giving it some other type of exercise. But walking that dog, I mean, but there's walking the dog, being walked by the dog versus walking with the dog. So there's difference too there.
Well, and I think it's twofold. Like when you bring a dog with you, you're saying without a doubt, we're a family. We're a pack. I know they're pack units or pack, but I think it's more familial unit, like a family, right? And when you go somewhere with a dog and you check out that place, that itself is a bonding experience. But then when you come back home together, not just on a walk, but on a road trip, out camping, right? Yes. Go to farmer's market, even go to the store. Like you guys are going somewhere together and you're coming back together and reinforcing that familial bond. That is what we're trying to communicate to this animal. Let me see. Yep. Don't say no. Avoid all triggers, blah, 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 meds and drugs. Yeah. Yeah. I say no. First freaking day, I said no to this dog in a meaningful way because, well, I mean, she's laying right next to me. I don't have the camera to pan over to her, but I mean, she would lose her mind in the crate. And I had to let her know that that's unacceptable from day one. And now she's laying here. And just like we said about the toughness, like she's toughening up here. I know it's hard for her to leave her family, And I know it's hard for her to maintain her time in a crate, but I have to let her know. Whatever. I don't do what you do. I don't walk my dogs. Yep. Evan again, holding up the sun. Good conversation. I have to go watch more later. Thank you for being here, Nelson. Love you, buddy. Okay, let's see here. Force-free fanatics have done significant damage to rearing and training. What do you think of that comment?
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to think. There's been a million cases where, and I know I was talking to somebody not too long ago about it, that there was like a real aggression problem with this dog, and the dog could have been helped. And, they brought in, a force-free trainer, and the force-free trainer was like, well, if meds aren't going to help, you might as well put the dog to sleep. Well, that's the ultimate correction, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But, why are you putting the dog to sleep if the dog is helpable or salvageable? I don't know how that's any kinder, but
it's not.
Yeah,
it's not. And people, what I found out during these conversations, Babette, is that a lot of people have gotten into the industry because they had one of those difficult dogs. They went to one of those force-free trainers or purely pod, whatever you call them, and they told them, put your dog to sleep. And they love their dog too much. And they're like, I got to figure this out.
Yes.
And they found a trainer that provided some solutions in the form of boundary structure.
Yep.
And they saved, they had a harmonious relationship. And a lot of times too, they go back to the force-free trainer and be like, my dog's awesome. Let me tell you how I got him this way. And then they get salaciously attacked. They get demonized because how dare you do that? And I have to remind them, like, look, man, you can't take back that needle.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. You were telling me to kill my dog. And to me, that is way more aversive than any correction, any punishment that I would ever do. And it's absolutely, it breaks my heart. It absolutely breaks my heart when I think about some of these dogs that I know that have gone to the other side. And there's some of the dogs that I have, that I've behaviorally euthanized myself. I 6 or 7 of them, that a couple of them, I'm just like, man, now that I know what I know, I wish I would have tried this. Right. And so, yeah, it's and that's another aspect of this industry, that it is emotionally taxing. And some of the times the people, they really just want an out. Right. And so if they're going to do that, then I tell them, you be right there with that dog, and you look at it right in the eye. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
More affection with that golden retriever. Oh, Denise says, can I just pick up a trained dog at 5 p.m.? That's the gratification.
When I had my day school, people would walk in day one, at the end of the day to pick up their dog. What did he learn today? We just kind of look at them like, it's only day one. How can learned their names, okay?
Babette, they want to know already. We'll get into this, but how do they follow you?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram under Haggerty Dog. I'm on YouTube, Haggerty Dog Training. I don't really post on X, so I wouldn't even go there. But yeah, Facebook and Instagram. Oh, and TikTok. My daughter got me on TikTok.
Oh, cool.
And it's Haggerty Dog is my name everywhere.
Yep, and I'll put up a link to the website as well for haggertydog.com too. But let me get back to, so I wanted to talk about, like, we're getting off on talking about dogs modern day. And your father, we were starting to talk about this before we went live, and you were going to say something about your dad, about when he passed away in 2006, and then you were talking with a friend about this. So let's pick up on that conversation, because I wanted to.
Yeah. So I reached out to a friend of mine today, because actually it was Denise I was talking to, and she was talking about a seminar, and I think I know which seminar it was that she attended. And if it's the one that I'm thinking of, it was actually the last seminar my dad gave. And that would have been 2000 and what did we figure out? Because I called up another friend of mine because he helped me with that seminar. It was 2003. And that was the last seminar he gave. And in July, it's going to be 19 years that my dad's been gone. And I can't believe it. It's like it's a long time. He was my best friend. So think about him every day. And, I said to you at the beginning when we were emailing, I said, oh, yeah, my dad, I could hear, he'd wink and he'd say, oh, you got him bullshitted. Every now and then I can hear my dad, you got your head up your ass, Babette.
That's what a good dad does, man.
He was big Irish Catholic, Army Ranger, Korean War veteran. I mean, he, Bronze Star, he was a badass, but he was also he was also chill. He was like in a lot of ways the elder statesman. But man, if you like got into it with him, he'd as he'd say, yeah. You mess with a bull and you get a horn up your ass is what, there were so many captainisms. It's not even funny that I hear all the time.
Well, I think that we need more of that. And I think that it's coming around, hopefully, right? With there's like a weird kind of rhythm of our society where it's okay to kind of be honest and talk about the consequences, the hard part of life, I think that even with my father has passed away as well. Like we forget about this stuff, man. Like what I want to do to just spend like 15 minutes with him and just chat with him about it and just the stuff that he would say. And it's just a different time now.
Yeah.
In some aspects, it's improved. Society has improved, but it's also, there's that saying of like hard times make good men. Hold on, let me find this one.
Oh, I heard that.
Hard times create strong men. Hold on, let me see. Strong men create good times create weak men create hard times.
I have heard that. That's good. I like that.
I think that your dad came from a hard time.
Oh yeah, he did. He grew up in New York City and, born in 1931. So, Depression years and, World War II and, New York City was, it was tough. He came from a family of Irish immigrants and they were a scrappy bunch, those Haggertys and Healys on both sides of the family. They were pretty tough.
And my wife's O'Hanley, and Church is from, Barrett is my surname from County Mayo, and Church is Killarney up north.
Okay.
Ireland, right? And then Welsh, too, Irish Welsh. And it's basically, I miss that. I miss that kind of rough around the edges way to talk, and it's a toughening that we got as kids too. And I'm glad that we did, man. I'm so glad that I didn't have all this technology. I'm so glad that I was out scraping knees and we would get a scraped knee and then they would put that iodine right on it and they would blow on it whenever it burned, right? And so it's there's a lot of things that are great about this world, but there's also things that are lost in the old way of doing things. And that's one of the reasons why I learned from old dog training books.
Yes.
Right.
I love old dog training books.
Yeah, I have a ton of them. Yeah. And then when your dad would do the seminars, and do you do seminars too? Or do you mostly do private trainings? How do you run your business, Babette?
Now I'm doing private lessons in the home. I moved back to Florida 3 years ago. When I was in Jersey, I had a brick and mortar. I had, the employees and the day school, and I have PTSD from employees. You
understand. In my existence, yeah. I have 12.
So
you manage people, not train dogs. That's why I was like, dude, I got in this to train dogs, not people, right? Like
that was just it. Yeah, like I spent more time, taking care of the behind the scenes stuff, and I was like, I just want to train my dogs. So when I left Jersey, I moved, and I came back to Florida. I was like, you know what? Keeping it simple. I'm going in the home and I'm training my dogs and picking and choosing, and it's a good lifestyle for me. I have a little bit more free time because both of my kids are out of the house. So now I'm actually training my own dogs, which I haven't done that in years. So I've got my German Shepherd puppy. I'm training him in IGP, doing agility with him and herding. And it's nice that I finally get to train my own dogs because I haven't shown or done anything with my own dogs since my kids came along, 25 plus years. So it's fun. Like I'm at this good space in my life where it's like all the things that I wanted to do with my dogs, I'm finally getting it done. And I don't have to worry about the employees or this thing or the other thing, or, just if I want to take time off, I take time off. If I want to sleep in tomorrow, I can sleep in because I scheduled myself accordingly,
How many dogs do you have now?
I own 3. My poodle, which is actually my daughter's service dog, and he's actually up in New York with her at school. And then her pug, our pug, the family's pug that don't tell the other dogs, but when something happens to our pug, we're all going to need therapy because she's our favorite. She's the cutest pug. Like I did not want a pug. My daughter wanted a pug. So we have the pug. So the pug's with me because my daughter can't have her up in New York. And then my shepherd puppy. My other shepherd passed away right before Christmas. So yeah, so I'll probably get another shepherd within the year. I'm gonna probably get another shepherd, and then I have 2 cats and a horse. The horse is also in New York. So in my house, I have 2 dogs and 2 cats, and it's good.
Now, a couple of things that we have a lot of people that are just starting out in the industry, the people that are professionals. There's certain things that you want to think about when you grow.
Yes.
And when you start to get a brick and mortar, there's overhead. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people realize the amount that they need to pay before they even start to put money in their own pocket. Like you got your lights, you got your rent, you got your insurance, you got your L&I, you got your payroll.
Your employees, yeah.
Yeah, and your employees, and just managing the expectations day to day of these employees and the stuff that's going on in their life.
Yeah.
And I remember looking out and seeing all these people, and I'm like, man, every single one of these people rely on me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's a heavy weight to shoulder. And so before you think about getting big, and I've been to like these masterminds and these other businesses with dog trainers. And I remember one person's like, I have to make $90,000 a month because he had multiple facilities before I even start to make a penny. Right. And so think about that, when you start, like this starts taking precedence, and this is why people get burned out, is that they grow a little bit too big, or they just have a misconception about what it feels like, what the expectations are. And some people are made for that. Yeah. But I'm the same way, Babette. Like I'm a one-man show. Once I had a falling out with Petco and PetSmart when I was doing my magazine. I was doing a dog coach magazine, and they wanted editorial control, and I had 2 more rounds of payroll, and I had to let everybody go. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. And so that's something to learn, is like, look, this is something that you're going to hate yourself, man. You're going to like, not necessarily like hate yourself as a person, but hate the decisions that you've made thinking that you wanted to achieve this level in your business, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. When I opened up my first day school, I had 1 day school in North Palm, and I had opened up that school in 96, 97. And I opened it because I thought I wanted a kennel. And my dad said, don't get a kennel, don't get a kennel. He had all of his old employees that worked for him and then went out and got kennels. He would have them all get on the phone with me and they'd all say, don't get a kennel, don't get a kennel, don't get a kennel. So he said, I'm going to open up a day school, like Old Town School for Dogs. That's where Kevin, I think that's where he got his start, which was a day school, the first day school ever in the country, most likely, because they opened up in 74, 77.
What's up, Larry?
And oh, hey, Larry. And so when I opened up my day school, like immediately, and I remember one day I said to he was my husband at the time, and I was like, well, run the numbers by me. And I forget what the percentages were, but I'm like, I am working 3 times as much and I'm making like a third of what I was making before. And I said, you're going to get a job and we're closing this place down because I am done. I'm done with these employees and everything else. And then, of course, I didn't learn my lesson the first time. And I did it again when I was in Jersey. And I have to say, I learned a lot. But you know what? I'm not cut out to be a good people manager. I'm not good at running that kind of business. I mean, I've learned a lot, and if I had to do it again, but I don't have to. I like, I don't have the overhead. Every week I'd be like, okay, how many dogs do we have starting this week? Like, I've got to make payroll on Friday. So Monday would come, and I'm already like, is there going to be enough for the payroll on Friday? And when Murphy shut us down for COVID, I was in tears because I thought, oh my God, what are my employees going to do? I mean, fortunately, they were able to collect unemployment and we were all in decent positions, but, it's the stress. One thing my dad used to say, I think it was Barry Goldwater who ran for office, back in the 60s. And he would say, I'll go ahead and share it anyway. And he'd say, one thing about these politicians is they don't know what it is to have to make a payroll on Friday. And my dad used to say, there would be times where I'd go home on a Friday night after I paid all my employees and I had nothing left in my pocket. And it was true because he had to pay his employees. Every Friday, those employees were depending on him. They had families to feed. They had kids to clothe. And, people think like, oh, you're the big fat cat in the corner office, but like, and
I used to look at my employees and we call them entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs, right? There's the intrapreneurs, like they go clock out and they're just like, oh, let's go. And I'm just like, I wish, wish, that I could just go hit the clock button and then all my worries go away. I'm going to go get a drink or whatever. Right. And so there's nothing wrong with being that entrepreneur. There's nothing. The entrepreneur has a lot more tasks. And you know what? And it speaks true to our day and age in the political world, where we see a lot of successful business people coming into the political realm, making all these cuts. And I got to tell you, like, I get it. I'm just like, OK, cool. We got bloat. We got too much because just like Barry Goldwater says, that these politicians, they're not business people, they're lawyers. They've never had to run their own payroll. They've never had to have the experience of being responsible. And what's funny is that Murphy shut you down, and so literally Murphy's law those that don't know Murphy's law is that whatever can go wrong will go wrong, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of ironic that Governor Murphy was the one that shut you down. Was it governor or was it? Yeah.
No, governor. He was the governor. I don't know if he's still the governor in New Jersey. I left, but
Murphy's law came real true for you.
Yeah.
And even if and that's why I assume that's why Larry, if he's still here, like he could run a huge operation, but I know he doesn't because he loves going to concerts with his family. He loves vacationing. He likes to keep it small because of this. Absolutely. You lose yourself. You lose your soul kind of in the big scheme of things if you try to make it too big. And I've purposely kept it from getting to a point where I don't have hands on every aspect of what I do. But in order to do that, you need to know how much you need to charge. Right. And that's important as well. The other thing that I want to express is like, look, I have 7 dogs. And that's the other aspect of this. Like, I will never, ever be in this situation again. I had 10, but I sold 3, and the last 7, I'm just like, okay, you guys are in. I can't live without you, but I will never, ever. And so we're passionate about this stuff. And I remember Bart Bellin, time is too valuable. Yep, Larry is still here. Time is too valuable. We were just talking about that, Larry, like the green stuff we can make and lose. Time is something that once you spend it, that's why they say spend, right? Pay attention. Time is money, and spend your time wisely, because once you've spent that time, there's no getting that back.
Absolutely.
And so what I was saying is that even though we're passionate about this stuff, we can't let our passions overrule our life. And this is an aspect of like, look, I pay to go to work on some days because I have 7 dogs on my own.
Sure.
And so when I have 5 client dogs here, I really have 12 dogs here, right? Because it's, but more of the dogs that I have here are me and my fault. And so be careful of that too, of not taking on more that you can as far as your growth of your business, but also don't let your passion grow to a point where it starts to impede your life as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm grateful that I had the dog training because, I ended up raising my kids on my own. And the dog training, and my daughter had a lot of medical issues, so she was in and out of the hospital a lot for many years. So I was grateful that was my career, because I was able to take off when I had to, or not go in at all because I had to be in the hospital or something came up. Yes. But at the same time, and it did. I remember, my dad, before he passed away, he had said something to me one day, and he said, well, if I leave you with nothing else, I will have left you with a way to make a buck. And, thank God I was a dog trainer while raising my kids, because it did give me the ability to be, my kids had it pretty good. They didn't suffer. They thought they suffered, but they weren't suffering. But, with a regular career, like a 9-to-5 job, it would have been a lot more difficult. Employees in some ways made it easier for me when my daughter was in the hospital, but the downside of it was no, because there were a lot of times I couldn't be with my kids because I had to go in because an employee was sick, or, I had to fire somebody or whatever it was. So that in-home, you can't get the time back.
Yeah. So. I had an employee hit on one of my clients' kids.
Oh, jeez.
I had an employee lose a dog.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah. Did nightmare stuff. Lose a dog. Just call me and be like, yeah, he ran off. I'm like, where are you at? Find that fucking dog right now. Right. Like, hey, guess what? We never found him. And then I went to the client's place, and I mean, this is full just disclosure with you guys. Like, this is the stuff that can happen. And I went to the client's house, and I'm like, look, we lost the dog. And I don't know what it's downtown Seattle. Like and I'm just thinking maybe got hit by a car or something like that. And they said, oh, well, we were just fostering for a couple of weeks, and we were going to give him back anyway, and all that. So, luckily, and I still had the client, right? And, but I'm just saying, like, this is the stuff that wakes you up in the middle of the night. And there's a 24/7 gig too, especially if you board dogs. Like dogs are there overnight, and they can eat something. They can not eat. They can not drink. I had a dog get blowed out here that I had to run to the hospital right then and there. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many moving parts with this industry that we have to consider, and it takes up the energetic residue. I had a client or a dog trainer track mud. They were dropping off a dog and track mud all through their laundry room and all through their all this stuff. And I'm there at 9 p.m. at night scrubbing the floor on my hands and knees. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so right. You're right. I'm like, I'll fix it, man. Like whatever I need to do, I'll do this. And the whole time I'm just like, I can't believe I'm on my hands and knees scrubbing floors. But this is things to consider, and if anybody can borrow the scars of my experiences, of anybody else's experiences, and it's actually a good thing that happened. Now we can make it a learning lesson for others as well. So
I don't even do boarding and training anymore. When you calculate the number of hours you're putting into the dog, it's like, and it got to the point where I would have so much stress. And when I had my brick and mortar, I would do boarding and training, but I'd bring the dogs home with me. I wouldn't keep them in the school at night. They'd come home with me. I mean, I remember sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night thinking like, did I forget a dog in the basement? Like, I count the dogs. Like, I had this terrible fear of like
I'm getting
about a dog and like not feeding it for weeks and just forgetting I had a dog, you know, in the house that I had in for training, because there were just so many coming in and going out that like I mean, nothing like that ever happened, thank God. But I had this whole fear, like even when I'd leave my school at night and I'd not be leaving with any dogs to go home, I'd be walking through the school. And I remember a couple of times I called my manager and I said, I'm not supposed to bring anybody home tonight, right? Like, is there a dog in here that I don't know about that I'm going to leave behind? I was just so afraid of forgetting about a dog.
Yeah, forgetting them in the field. Did I bring everybody in?
Yeah.
Did I leave that dog in the field?
Yeah.
Right. And then I have to go count them. And then one time I went to this crate and this black lab like literally blended in with the crate so well, like I couldn't see him. Like I was in the crate and it was dark and the dog was dark. And I'm like, well, my, and the pang of anxiety that comes, you know, and it's just like, this is what we call energetic residue that's always taking up mass in your brain. Right. And so, you know, be considerate, all the new people out there working canine gear. This is a new one right here. Yeah. Helpful information. I so that I know exactly what I don't need to do and start my business. Absolutely. Listen to us. This is like what, like I was saying, if you can borrow our scars, and welcome back. Then this will help us out too. Let's go back. My boy's a service work and service dog. I want to get him some sport competition soon. Cool. And then let me see here. I plan on getting my boy AKC stuff. Cool. Barn hunt. DD. What's DD? The DD drug detection dog. Okay.
Detection dog, I'm guessing.
Scent work. Yep. That's what I'm saying too. And I love, that's why I like IGP.
Yes.
Honestly, is the detection work aspect. Like I don't think French Ring has tracking, does it? My French Ring guys. Oh, dock diving. That's what DD is. Dock diving.
Oh, dock diving.
We're all like,
yeah, we're all in a different. Thank you.
I think they do have an art. Well, I'm not sure, so I'll have to ask Sergio or Nate or Bethany, my French Ring people. But that's what I love about IGP. And IGP is Schützen. And just so you guys know, Captain Haggerty was one of the first Schützen judge, if not the first one in America.
I don't know if he was the first one in America. I know he judged the first Schützen trial in New York State. That I know for sure. And I know he did judge a few of them in California. In the very early days when Schützen was first starting to come over here. Yeah.
What attracted you to Schützen? Why IGP? And IGP is Schützen in America.
Right.
Just so
yeah, they call it. Well, actually, it's funny because I have a friend who used to do Schützen, and I was on the phone with him today. And I was like, yeah, I'm taking, the puppy to IGP. And he said, what's IGP? I said, that's what they're calling Schützen now. And he's like, really? I'm like, I know. I just found out myself. I said, don't ask me what it stands for. It's something German. I should know, but I don't know. It's something Prüfung is all I know, because the Prüfung is testing in German. But I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, I love it. It's the obedience, the protection, the tracking. And, I'm all about having a dog do everything it can do. And as my dad would look at me, well, if you want to train this, or I don't know if I can train that. Well, you're a dog trainer, aren't you? So my goal with this puppy, and we're going to make it happen, is I'm going to title him an IGP. And then once we're done with the IGP, then I'll put him in AKC, obedience and tracking. We're doing the agility now. We're going to do the herding. Maybe I'll do dock diving. I don't know. But those are the things that I want to do: the agility, the herding, the obedience, the tracking, and the protection, the IGP. And then also an AKC, because I want to get him a versatility title. And yeah. And actually I plan on, and I'll put this out there, I've always had this goal, and I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to put an IGP title on a standard poodle. So all these
can you do that?
Guys, yes, you can do it. They are so capable of doing it.
I mean, I thought it was breed specific to German Shepherds for some reason. Like that's what.
No.
Okay.
No, there are different organizations. Like DVG does all breeds, Mals, Rotties, Shepherds, etc. USA, I think, is just the Shepherds. And I think there's another Schützen group. I'm not quite sure. I have to look that up. But, and I know of people who've put Schützen titles on standard poodles. But
I don't doubt it. I've met some standard poodles that need a Schützen title, man. Like some of They're intense dogs, man. People don't realize they're bird dogs. These dogs are working dogs. They're not just like fancy doodle. Some of them are, but some of them are serious dogs.
Yeah. And, I'd love to just get out there and just do it to prove people wrong about standard poodles. I love them as a breed. And I've always wanted to do that. So after I get the Schutzhund done with this one, and while I'm working him on the agility and the herding, then I'll start working a standard poodle. And,
so why IGP? I mean, and people that don't know, yes, you are correct. It is Schutzhund. Never mind, you answered it. So why did your dad like IGP? Was it just the only thing that was there? Was it what do you know what attracted him to that?
I would say probably, well, I mean, him being in the Army, canine handler in the Army.
Okay.
I'm sure that is where it started. And of course, he was such a purist about, the German Shepherds, and that's what they were bred to do. And this is how they breed them in Germany. Like, you have to have the IGP title and the confirmation title. So you have to have the brains and the beauty in order to be bred. And that was his focus. He was a real purist. And his feeling is also, train the dog in all areas, and not just talking about German Shepherds, but I remember with employees, he'd say, yeah, you can take off the weekend and take your dog to the tracking or whatever it was. Okay, stopped. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I tell people, if we're talking dogs, if you can't deal with a barking dog, then I don't know what to tell you, because my dogs will go off too.
Yeah. And so the more avenues you train a dog and the more disciplines, the more sports, it helps you become a better dog trainer. And I even see it with just the work that I'm doing with my puppy. As far as the agility and the IGP goes, it's even helping me just train my everyday students.
Yeah.
So
some people comment. I got some trolls, I think, showing up here. One thing too, that's Andy commented here. This is very important too, you guys. Like, this is something that you have to qualify your clients. Mm-hmm. This is a big thing in the industry, man. Like, not big as but it does happen. It does happen more. Like, I've had colleagues with dogs that clients have abandoned. That the dog becomes too much for whatever the reason. They feel like they paid you half of the training amount or whatever it is, and they really don't want that dog back, and then they ghost you. Yeah. And so there's something to learn from Abby. I think this is Abby at Working Dogs. Pay attention to this too. Don't like qualify the dog. No. And it's okay to fire clients. It's okay to give dogs back. It's okay to, I mean, even if you have a dog that's relinquished, to take them to a shelter. Well, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I don't know, but there are clauses in the contract that can kind of deal with that. But if you don't qualify your clients, if you think you're everybody to everything to everybody, you end up being nothing to nobody. And
that's true.
Be laser focused on the clients that you want and that you accept. And it's okay not to accept everybody. I just pass on a lot of people. And just like you were saying, I don't do board and trains. And unless you pay a premium, and I should have charged these guys more because they were like, okay, like right away when I told them the high amount that I was going to charge them, they're like, yeah, no problem. But it is a huge commitment. And so think about that. And so have you titled a dog? We'll get back to IGP stuff. Have you titled a dog yet? Have you, how do you have a IGP camp that you go to? That's another thing that
I go to a Schutzhund club. South Florida Schutzhund Club that Phil Holscher started. Phil Holscher, he's like world champion, like in the 70s. And I mean, he's in his 70s now, but he's in great shape. He's still taking bites. He's still working dogs. He's still amazing. So awesome. I go to the club he started. He lives a few hours away. So I go see him. I'm going to start seeing him more regularly. And actually I'm going to a seminar next weekend, but I've never titled a dog in IGP before. So I'm really excited to do that.
Cool. I'm excited to watch your progress.
It's a whole, and it's a whole different world. And, I grew up a lot in the confirmation world. Mm-hmm. And just hanging out with these IGP people, they're just cool. Not that the confirmation people aren't, but it's a different world that I'm venturing into. And I love it. It's a lot of fun.
What's the difference between conformation and IGP? So is it just conformation, the obedience?
No, the conformation is like what you see at like Westminster. It's the breed standard and how the dog is built and conforms to the breed standard. So it's more of the beauty pageant as opposed to the obedience and tracking.
Now, do they have a prerequisite of an obedience at all with conformation?
No.
I know that they used to, like early 90s, they used to have a novice level obedience to get into rally, I think. Tony Anchetta was talking to me about, like, this was kind of where the downfall of a lot of these standards of training went down with like novice obedience that's novice, you guys. But guess what? That when I take out a dog that I've trained not up to the novice obedience level, do you know what people ask me? Is that a service dog? I've never seen a dog that's trained. And I'm like, this is novice level, you guys. This is not anything meaningful. I mean, it is meaningful, but there's no retrieve, there's no jump over, lay down, and so if you guys don't know about novice level obedience, you got to go watch AKC novice level and imagine your dog doing that. And I think that that's just a bare minimum standards that we should adhere to.
Absolutely. The very minimum. Absolutely the very minimum.
But the conformation, none of that, huh? And what dogs did you show?
I had some golden retrievers with a friend of mine. I showed her dogs. And I had Malinois. My dad and I were breeding champion Malinois back in the 90s before everybody else got the Malinois. Yeah.
What did you think when you first met a Malinois?
Oh, I mean, they were great. But now I look at them, I'm like, I'm exhausted. Like, I'm ready for a nap. My daughter wanted one. And I said, absolutely not in my house. I don't have the energy for it. Come on.
Has the temperament always been this way? Or do you think they've gotten a little bit more intense in the recent years?
The temperament, I think, is much better because you had like intense working dogs. I think they're more intense now than they were. But you also had these dogs that were really fearful and nasty. And yeah, you had very faulty temperaments. Very faulty. The temperament has really improved. And so is the working ability on the dog. Absolutely.
And then you decided on a poodle for your daughter for her service dog. Abby wants to know, did you or your daughter train their service dog, or was she program trained? Did you get her through a program, or did you guys do it?
No. We got her from these guys who breed poodles. Pam Loeb actually referred me to them. And they would donate their poodles to Fidos for Freedom. I think that's the name of it in Maryland. That had dogs for veterans. But no, my daughter and I trained the dog. And I have to say, my daughter did most of the training. She did the medical alert work with him. I would take him with me to work every day, do the social aspect of things and the obedience. But she did the more advanced obedience, and she did the medical alert work with him. And she did a really good job with him. She really did. I have to hand it to her.
I'm training a service dog now, and she goes everywhere with me. She stays right here with me when I do these live streams. And that's the other thing is, like, because I have 7 dogs, but now I'm training this dog board and train, like, she has just gone right up to the top of the pile, and my other dogs are like, are you kidding me? I always go with you. Kevin's out of here. Bye, Kevin.
Oh, good night, Kevin. I'm so glad you were here.
Yeah. Do you use muzzles? If so, can you recommend one? Let's get into the muzzle.
I do think dogs should be muzzle trained in the sense that they should get used to having a muzzle on. You never know when, a disaster happens and something happens and the vet has to muzzle the dog. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I personally don't use muzzles. Even when I'm working with aggressive dogs, I feel like it gives me a false sense of security. And, the dog can get the muzzle off if you screw it up and you don't put it on properly, or if you have a dog that's really determined. So I don't use muzzles. I think, if you're going to use a muzzle, if you're going to muzzle train a dog, use a basket muzzle, whether it's the metal I prefer the leather, because the metal, if that dog hits you with that metal, it hurts. Yeah. The leather is a bit softer.
Yeah. And I would do a lot of work with rescue dogs that would come to me with these muzzles on. And the first thing my first line of action is get that muzzle off of them. Yeah. And I always say to them, don't make me regret this. I know you don't want this on you, but don't make me regret this because I'm taking it off.
Right.
And usually they don't, man. Like I back time to make sure that I have a little bit of a space in case they do decide to come after me or something like that. But that is my first line of action, is to get that muzzle off that dog. I want to deal with the dog without having this, this thing that's agitating them a little bit. And I want to find out what's really going on with this dog. And then it's about rapport, building a relationship with that animal, get them to trust you, and then start to do the repetitions of the obedience work and showing them, and started opening up those lines of communication. They are good. I mean, to have a dog muzzle trained for the vets. I also, on my grooming table, I have a couple muzzles just hanging there. And then I also, for my little dogs, I have a little hammock in case they can be a little turkey. Awesome. I'll just stick them up in there and then do their nails. But that's it. Is like, look, we do, like any tool, including e-collars, including, what Bill, you said Kohler, it's Keeler actually.
I know. You're right. So Keeler, as I was saying it, I was like, that's not coming out right. But
Keeler, one of my favorite quotes from him was, "The mark of a trained dog is off-leash reliability." Mm-hmm. Right. And so whenever we have a tool that we rely on, we're not focusing on the fundamental aspect, which is of respect that is gained through the relationship of proper communication, building rapport with that dog. And so I've seen dogs, once they get that leash off, later, right? Yeah. Every single tool is just that, a tool. I want to build a relationship and the respect with me. I don't want the dog to respect the treat, the tool, e-collar, collar, leash, muzzle, any of that stuff. I want that to eventually go away. And same thing with me as a good teacher, to teach other people. I need to become progressively unnecessary in this relationship, to instill the knowledge within you so that you can carry forth and exist in the world harmoniously with the dog. That's what you're hiring me for.
And speaking of Keeler, I think any new trainer needs to read all of Keeler's books, and if they can, take Tony's course. I don't know if Tony's still offering it.
He is. He's having surgery tomorrow. No, today. I think he had surgery. They just did his other knee, but he's coming on one of these with me.
Oh, good. Okay.
And I just talked to him, and I've been hounding him, man. I've taken his course 5 times.
Have you really? Good for you.
Yeah, and they use a lot some of my videos for the curriculum that he asked me, can I show the people the dogs that you've trained? And I'm like, I'm honored, dude. Absolutely, 1000%, because I want to learn something so well that I can teach it. And I think that he has a bad rap. Like people just don't understand. Maybe it's the voice of that time. That's like we were talking about with the kind of the brashness of the rough around the edges of that time when he wrote those books like in 1941, I think, or even before World War II, right?
Yeah.
1938 to 43 was World War II. But it's just a different climate. But I got to tell you, after taking Tony's course, I have never found a methodology that's more fair and more gentle.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right? And that's what people don't realize is like, what? And I'm like, yeah, dude, this is the most fair and gentle method of training a dog. And so Tony Anchetta, Keeler, or it's spelled Kohler, Koeh, I think.
Koehler, right? Yeah.
Yep. KohlerDogTraining.com. And I'll be having him on one of these live streams, you guys. So if you're a new trainer, please take his course. It was mind blowing. Just like with the NAPO PO and all these other systems that are out there, they're absolutely fantastic. And that's what Babette and I were talking about earlier, is like, look, just like her dad would do, is it's like, if I have, what did you say? If I have 15 dogs, I might be training them 15 different ways.
Or I think I said 10 dogs, 15 different ways.
Yeah, 10 dogs, 15 different ways, right?
Yeah.
And so we need an eclectic knowledge base. We need to learn from as many people as we can, and especially the people that will tell you are their dogs, what they put out, and follow the dogs to your teachers. I'll put up a link for this website because people are asking here.
Clooney's such a wealth of knowledge.
Did you read his books and stuff? I
did. I can't say I read them, from beginning to end, but I've gone through them, and I've started Tony's course, I think 2 or 3 times. And then I was running my darn brick and mortar. Like the last thing I wanted to do at the end of the day was train my own darn dogs.
Yeah, you can get them $10. Yeah. But take its course, because I read the books and I was just like, what? Because there's some of the stuff that, look at.
I don't know. Is he still teaching the course?
Yes.
He is. Okay. Because I thought he wasn't teaching it anymore.
Maybe. I'll have to double check.
Unless he told me that because I hadn't finished it the last time. Dude, because he did say a couple times, he's like, could you please finish the course? I'm like, Tony, like,
yeah, just like the sink, like the plumbing company. Yep. Kohler.
Yeah.
Yep. Kohler. Yeah. Yep. But it's pronounced Keeler. And and he does the Hollywood dogs, he does a guard dogs, he does all this, but the long line work. And the one thing that I really like about his course is readiness tests.
Yes.
So every week to 10 days, you have a readiness test. And then every step of the process shows you a couple things. One, it shows you if the dog is putting together the abstract concepts that you're trying to introduce. Right. And if they're ready for the next series of teaching. Yes, Kohler. Let me put up a link to the website here. Kohler Dog Training. Now I'm saying Kohler. Anything else that you recommend as far as like your teachers, or who are you, Babette? Who are you learning from? And
well, right now, I mean, I'm immersing myself into this IGP world, but as far as like training, like everyday dogs for everyday people, I think Linda Keim has some great stuff up there. I really enjoy reading her stuff. Yes. George Cockrell is a wealth of knowledge. He doesn't post a lot of content, at least not that I've seen. But if you had an opportunity to spend some time with him, Tony for sure. Tony and Linda, I would say, are probably my two favorite people. Larry, I know, has got a lot of good common sense knowledge. And he's enjoyable and he's funny.
Yeah, and the play aspect too, like Ivan Balbanoff and the TWC. I put up a link to the Kohler Dog Training or Keeler Dog Training. That's the website. So contact Tony and see when his next course is. It's all online, but you do need to get a green dog. So you get a dog that's green, no training whatsoever, and take them through the course, and you videotape every step of the process, submit it, critique it. 13 weeks is realistic, but 10 weeks is the course. Right. I cannot recommend it highly enough, especially for new dog trainers. This will give you a fundamental, and we call it foundation work, a fundamental understanding of what foundation work is. And I guarantee you're going to have a dog that's more trained, right? And it's, and I'm out there. Yeah, I went to the pit bull rescue, and I was like, you know what? I've had some issues with some of these pit bulls, like training them. I want to take the craziest dog you have. I want to adopt them and train them. And they were like, okay.
And how far into it before you regretted it?
No, I did it. I did it all the way through. Right. But about 1 week into it, I regretted it. I tell you that. It didn't take me, like, on the way home from that training is when I regretted it. I'm like, what am I doing? Yeah. But what had happened was that this dog got adopted. Like, she was there for like over a year. And then she was adopted within like 7 weeks, like less than 2 months after she went back, she was adopted. She lived 5-6 years with this guy, and then he brought her back, and she not brought her back, but to give away, but he came back to visit to show him, and they did all the training, and it was perfect. Like that's what I was saying. Like, remember, one and done. Like when you do this properly and you take the time to instill and do these readiness tests, and the dog shows you, I got this, and we're ready for the next step, then it is truly one and done. Like,
absolutely. It is true. Absolutely. Yeah. For somebody new, I definitely second you saying that. As far as doing Tony's course, Linda Keim, those would be, my two first people I would pick. Mike Learberg has some good videos on there too, with Michael Ellis and Forrest Mick. One thing too I want to tell the new people is don't necessarily follow the one that's got the most amount of views. Go find the people who have been out there in the trenches day in and day out for years and years and years, because you know what? They're out there training dogs. They're not setting up the camera training their own dog. And I think there's something to be said for that. And, I don't have time to put up content. I'm too busy training everybody else's dog. If I had more time, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that if you have like a lot of views or if you're putting out a lot of content, you're not a good dog trainer. I'm not saying that at all, but that doesn't mean you're a great dog trainer. Don't put off the one that's been training dogs for 40 years and, has been in your town forever and has trained all of the dogs and then some in your state, because they're not, Insta famous, because they probably have a lot more knowledge than the Insta famous dude with a million hits. I mean, I won't say any names. And I think it came up the other day I think you and I are on Dog Trainers Lounge together.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this old video that came up with this guy who, I don't think he was a dog trainer, and he wasn't really training this dog in a store, but it was supposed to be dog training. And he was restraining this stressed out, muzzled dog. And
the Cane Corso, is that what it
was?
Or is this like a big massive cross?
Yeah. And then somebody said, "Oh, this is just as bad as," I'm not even going to say the name, so-and-so who wears these like outlandish outfits that's got like 20 gazillion subscribers that I only saw recently on either Facebook or Instagram. And he was down here in Miami. And I thought, oh my God, how does this guy have like 20 million followers or something completely insane? And, who is this person? And, just because you have 20 million followers doesn't mean that you've been out there a long time training dogs, I guess is really my point. So don't be lulled into the Insta famous people. Yeah. And again, that's no disrespect to those that have been out there and are Insta famous. Just use caution as to who you just follow. A lot of people. I'll leave it at that.
Yes. Follow a lot of people, and know that, like, even I've done four of these with Linda Kane, right?
Yeah, so I think I saw one of them.
Yep. And so and there's some people, just like you and I were talking about earlier, is like, dude, I don't really care about social media. Like, I don't like it. And people ask me, they say, Bill, you should have a lot more subscribers. I was like, they'll subscribe if they come. This to me is selfishly so I can learn more and talk to people. And then I remember having a conversation with a dog trainer at a conference that I was at. And I was like, I wish we would have recorded this, man. Because the people could have gleaned so much knowledge. And so I've done a couple hundred of these conversations, and they're just out there, you guys. If you want to listen to them, I guarantee you there's pearls of wisdom in every single one of these conversations that I've done. And a lot of these people are not well known whatsoever, but they're great dog trainers. And that's how I find these people, right? It's like, no, I know Babette, I know you're a great dog trainer, and I wanted to do this for years. Like, we talked about maybe doing this a long time ago, and I was like, you know what, I haven't asked Babette yet, so we need to get her on. And that's it. It's just like, there's no rhyme or reason, but that I just want to talk dog is something that we're passionate about, something that we do every single day. And just know that a lot of this content is curated, is showing you exactly what you want to see. It doesn't show you all the stuff that led up to this. And there's content out there. There's stuff that I've dealt with in the dog training world that if I posted it, it would ruin me too. Right. I had a dog on a pedestal that was going nuts, and the parents were like, "Can you videotape it?" I'm like, "No." I was like, "I will not video," because it's that messy middle. And it's just like, look, this dog gets too overwhelmed with this situation. And also I use it as an opportunity to acknowledge, especially the mom in the situation. I was like, dude, I just want to acknowledge that this is a serious dog. This is a serious case. Like, what you've gone through is not typical. And I want to acknowledge and I remember the lady crying. She's like, thank you, Bow Wow. It's, it's something that's important to, to acknowledge some of the experiences that your clients have gone through too. And even Linda, who's been training dogs, and George Cockrell's been training longer than I've been alive.
Yes.
And she was mentioning, like, she has 2 cases in, like, she's never seen before. Wow. Right. And so, there's no finish line here, you guys. This is an always learning, always watching, observing, applying. And that's what's good about having a good network of people that you can, have as a feedback sounding board, and not be too prideful and just humble yourself to learn from others, and especially those giants of the industry that we stand on the shoulders of.
Yeah. Very true. Well said.
I saw your yawn. That's my cue.
No, I go to bed early, so us East Coasters.
Yeah, it's late there. It's still early here. Well, I think, is there anything else that you want to mention, Babette? Or did we talk about everything? Are you?
It was good. If anybody has any questions that's watching this, send me a message. I'm always happy to help. And don't get a kennel. Don't get a brick and mortar. I'm telling you, just keep your life simple. There's a lot to be said for it.
I want to see make sure I have you on Babette Haggerty. Let me see if I'm following you on YouTube here. Oh, Haggerty Dog Training. So I'm going to send your channel here for everybody.
Great.
To see as well.
I am hoping to spend the summer really kind of developing my YouTube channel.
Well, I know Nate, so shout out to Nate Schomer. And Nate, he has, LOL, that guy that's talking about, we won't mention any names. Dog daddy. But Sit, Stay, Learn, that's Nate Schomer, a good buddy of mine. And he's helping me, and I'll help you too, Babette, with thumbnails. And he's approaching 500,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. So Nate.
Wow.
I think maybe he should have you on his channel. He's been starting to do these live streams too. So I'll make an introduction.
Oh,
okay.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then Sergio, I'll be going on his show tomorrow, but I don't think it airs until the following week. But it's so cool to see, so many, great minds in the industry doing these live streams and just chatting with, so sometimes backyard kennel, that's what I have. So
yeah, that's one thing, but keep your numbers sane. That's just my feeling. I can't tell you how many times my dad had to get up from Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner because an employee didn't show up, and somebody had to go let out the dogs. Somebody had to go feed the dogs. Somebody had to do something for the dogs. When you're talking about dogs and owning your own business, it's 24/7. It's not like a clothing store where you shut off the lights. Granted, when you're the business owner, you're still going home. You're going to do your payroll. You're going to work on whatever at home. But, you have living, breathing animals that need to be walked and fed and cared for. And if they're puking at 3:00 in the morning, you need to get up and see why they're puking and maybe take them to the vet. So it's a responsibility.
Yeah, and there's a crappy part of the job that's just that, it's going in and opening up the kennel door and being like, whoa, okay, shit in their kennel, dude. There's stress. When you stress these animals out, they're gonna, it's gonna manifest its way physically. And then, I had a dog that was so stressed, blood in his stool, like a lot of it, and I was just like, oh my god. And it's not pretty. Like there's aspects of this that are hard to deal with. So, I'd say priorities, get your priorities straight in life, right? And find out why you want to do this. And know that time, you're never going to get that time back. Just like Larry said earlier, look at that. What did I do here?
That's pretty cool. Whatever that was.
Well, here, let me see if I'll do it does the fireworks or something. Here, let me, there.
Oh my gosh. If I do that, will the same thing happen, or is it just
I think it's just my computer does it. I think I have something set up like I don't know. But
pretty wild.
Keeler wrote his book in the 60s. I think it was earlier than the 60s, man. Keeler wrote his first book in the 60s. You should really do the research on who trained him. Let me see now. Hold on. Because I think it was in the 40s that he wrote his book, Kohler. The dog training.
I've got my copy in the next room.
Yeah, let's see. I got him out in my barn here. So Kohler method of dog training. There's a bunch of them. This one was 1962 release date, so maybe you're right. That one is
who trained him? Top dog. Tell us who trained him.
Yeah, who trained him?
Would that have been probably too late for Carl Weber? And I think Carl Weber was more of an East Coast guy.
Do I have a Keeler book here? No.
I don't think it mentions it in any of the books.
Yeah, I'll ask Tony too, because he's knowing your pet's health. I'm snout. Ooh, that's a good one. Maybe the pet safety. The pet safety guy. Look, he signed it and everything for me.
The War Dog Training Center. Was he in World War II, Bill?
I don't know. Pamela Reed wrote a good book.
Became chief trainer for the Orange Empire Dog Club at the time. 1962. Yeah,
let us know if you know anything there, top dog. Otherwise, we're wrapping this up anyway.
Okay.
And Denise, thank you for being here. Cool, you guys. Well, thank you very much for being here. I'll say goodbye to you. Yeah, of course. And then I'll say bye to you in the studio. So you stay there, and then we'll say goodbye to everybody. And then let me make sure. Yes, I did. I put up a link to your YouTube channel. So guys, go make sure you subscribe. And we'll say goodbye. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Have a great evening.